2 years ago, I went on the biggest leap of my life. I had a small dinner for my closest friends, and I thanked them for their support. I then left my full-time job, said goodbye to those friends, my family, and bought a one-way ticket to Africa, Nicaragua, and Australia, vowing not to come back until my money had run out. I also sold or gave away most of everything I owned. I wanted to go on my dream. I had a mission, and that was to go on a round-the-world journey with 2 missions. The first was to volunteer with linguists who work with communities with underdocumented or endangered languages as a photographer and a storyteller. My job would be to create an intimate snapshot of the people with whom they worked. Who are they? What's important to them? What are the traditions that they're choosing to keep as society changes? And what are they choosing to leave behind or are forced to leave behind as things change? My work would be used by the linguists to help advance their work, to promote preservation in general, and also to be given back to the communities themselves. My second mission was to demonstrate the power of everyday people to make a difference in our lives, in other people's lives, in their communities. To do this, I would find people who were doing just that and share their stories with the hopes that other people would be inspired to find their own ways to reach out. I would start with my own story. For 7 years, I have worked with the farmers of El Sauce, Nicaragua, where the college also has programs. Volunteers and I work with people, the farmers there, to promote and develop cooperatives for organic farming, coffee farming, basket making, and ecotourism. I also have a grassroots initiative called the Friends Project. It's not an official nonprofit, but when I travel, people who believe in do-it-yourself change provide small contributions, and we make grants to the communities and the people with whom I work who have projects that they think will have long-lasting and tangible improvements. In El Sauce, we've completed a number of projects, including providing artisan training for the Women's Cooperative, and the coffee farmers, providing them with a larger oven and ways that they can bag their own coffee so they can cut out the middlemen and make more money. We also send 4 students to high school and 2 to college, including Alonzo. They're the first ones in their community to do so. Before I went on my trip, they told me what they really wanted now was a preschool, a safe place for their youngest kids to learn. I thought this was awesome and I really wanted to help them. And it also kind of gave me heart palpitations because it would cost $5,000. And the Friends Project prides itself on the idea that small amounts of money, when collected and collectively used, can have large impacts. So the largest one we'd given at that point was $500. So $5,000 was pretty daunting, but where there's a will, there's a way. So I also announced that I would be raising $5,000, which sounds great, right? So with all big decisions in our lives, I think we can all relate to this. The what ifs can come in. And I kind of started freaking out. And I was like, what if? What if I suddenly can't take a photograph? What if they're all bad? What if I can't raise the money? What if I let them down? The hamster was like burning up on the wheel in my head. And it got to the point where my friend said, maybe you don't actually want this dream anymore. You've been talking about this for 15 years. Maybe it's not really what you want. And that was very difficult to hear. So she gave me the keys to her massage place, and I sat in the corner, sweating my face off for the day, scribbling a pro and con list. And at the end, I looked at the list, and on one side I had the pros. And there were pretty amazing opportunities and a chance to contribute to our human story. And on the other side, I had some cons. They were big ones, but mostly when I looked at them, they were fear, and fear of the unknown. And in the end, we can never know the unknown. And so I decided that I didn't know that part, but I knew who I was supposed to be and what my dream was, and that I should be fearless. And I've thought a lot about what that word means over the years. And I've come to believe that being fearless is not somebody who has no fear, but somebody who is afraid and does what they think is most important and what they believe in anyway. And in that respect, we all can be fearless every day in our own lives. And I said, I need to be fearless, and so I went. My first stop was Nicaragua. We raised $5,200 in 3 months through word of mouth with 250 other people who believed in do-it-yourself change and knew that their contributions could lead up to something collectively amazing. We hauled bricks, fireline style. We poured cement that we used with the water that we brought from the well. I lived with the families, and at night we talked over lanterns. And on Mother's Day, 2014, 100 farmers gathered for the grand opening. Some people had walked more than an hour to get there. There are now, 2 years later, there are now 15 students that attend the preschool every day. We have a full-time teacher provided by the government, who actually was a recipient of one of our high school scholarships. That's Maricela right there. So we did it. From there, I lent my time to the language projects, first in Kenya. I worked with Professor Michael Dierks of Pomona College and Professor Michael Marlowe of the University of Missouri. They're linguists who are conducting the first comprehensive study of several Luhya languages in the western rural area. I lived with a local family, and we took photos and interviewed participants in the language programs, and took photos and did stories about the traditions and everyday life, traditional things like pottery making, basket making, making homes out of mud, and also the things that have changed, like trying to get income from backyard gold mining. I did something similar in Senegal with Abby Hankin of the Leverhulme Crossroads Project. She and several other linguists and assistants in the local area are doing comprehensive studies and creating dictionaries of several languages, and it's a small area which is concentrated of several distinctive languages, which is what makes it unique. So we talked to fishermen, photographed everyday life, and especially the intersection of young people and the modernization, but also the traditional things that they're choosing to keep, such as dancing. I also worked in Australia with Susan Hanson and Cato Muir and leaders of Aboriginal mobs, 3 of them, Juban, Nalya, and Galamaya. They are the final speakers of their languages. And 100 years ago in Australia, there were more than 200 distinctive languages. Now there's only 20 that are fluently spoken. And so these people are taking it upon themselves to preserve their own languages, including Brian Champion. He is the final Galamaya speaker on Earth. There were a lot of amazing moments that happened on the trip. None of them that could have happened if I didn't take that gut-wrenching leap. And that leap and the consequences you have when you take that choice of being fearless is one of the most important lessons that I learned on the trip, and I'd like to share some of those lessons with you today, as well as the experiences that brought me to them. So some of the experiences was in Inampur. Abby Hankin and I were invited by the women to go into the sacred forest with them, and they were going to celebrate the newlywed women. The newlywed women that are flanked on either side of me were actually our guides. We didn't figure that out until halfway through. In Kenya, Benjamin Igadwe and other people in the small settlement of Jereri were so proud of being program participants for their language that when we came out on motorcycles from this forest, they greeted us with their finest clothing and they sang to us as friends. And Brian Champion, the final Galamaya speaker, he picked me up every day in his pickup in the Outback. Sometimes we didn't talk. In the Aboriginal culture, silence is considered, that's what is valued. And so oftentimes I didn't speak. If he wanted me to know something, he would tell me. Sometimes we rode in silence, but he also always showed me sacred sites. Some of them were destroyed by the mining businesses and some were still intact. And the last day, he picked me up and he took me to an encampment where he used to live as a kid. And he told me that the reason that he was sharing these stories, a lot of them for the first time ever, was because he has Alzheimer's. Very soon, all of this will be gone. Everything he knows, his language, the history of the Galamaya that's with him, and their mark. And he said to me, language, Christine, is what gives you identity. It gives you an identity of who you are. And in the end, we want the world to know that we were here. In Kenya, Professor Dirks and I had the amazing honor to be invited to a Bukusu circumcision event. This is one of the most important events in Bukusu life. And it's when a boy chooses to become a man. It's never hardly seen by outsiders, and it's never allowed that a woman see it. But as time goes on, as more people are doing the procedure in hospitals and the money that it takes to invite the village to this event, they wanted it to be preserved because they were proud of it, and so I was invited. So this thing lasted like 24 hours, and we had no idea what was happening. And at some point in the afternoon, we arrive at Humphrey's house, and all of those people were dancing, and the ground was shaking. And they picked up Michael Dirks, and they whisked him into the fracas, and I was taking pictures, and Humphrey comes into the center, and he's wearing basically the testicles in the side of a bull, and the stomach contents of the bull are smeared on him, and he and the other candidate wear this throughout the evening. It's an homage to the warriors and how they prepared for what was to come. We danced, we sang all night, and at about 4 a.m, Professor Dirks and our assistant Moses were asleep on either side of me, and someone took my hand to pull me up to dance again. And I had this overwhelming moment, I guess, where I thought, I can't believe this is happening. That people who don't know us are entrusting strangers with one of their most sacred parts of their life. It was truly amazing, and it's something that I think about often. I also had this ongoing revelation for the 24 hours that I had absolutely zero idea what was happening at any time. So the what-ifs that I worried about before, they were obliterated, and there was nothing but what-ifs. And I called it this like mind-splitting moment. And the mind splitters are the times when everything you knew about the world or you thought you knew is over. And it's irrevocably changed. And I thought, I had lived in the Amazon when I was 21. I've been to 35 different countries, and I've lived in 6 different countries. And I thought I kind of had seen everything. But being there was like being a kid again on another planet. And it allowed me to see differently, and my perception of the world kind of changed. And those kinds of moments are a gift. And that one was extreme, but those happened all the time throughout my year-long journey. When families who didn't know me took me honey ant hunting. I learned how to cook my favorite dish, to make bricks, to make a house, and to fish without words. That's why we have hands and eyes. You know what didn't happen? None of the things on my list. And I realized that I didn't care about the what-ifs anymore, because when real problems or things happen, you just deal with them, just like in real life, in any sort of circumstance. What did happen was I had to ask someone how to pee in their country, because after 24 hours, I still couldn't figure it out. And I peed in the wrong room anyway. I fell into an anaconda hole trying to catch caimans in the Amazon. And I also basically missed all the red flags and went into the jungle with a guide who ended up on drugs and being a little crazy, and I had to find my way away from him with absolutely no idea how that was going to happen. And those are the things you can't plan for, the unknown. But when it happens, you move on. They also afforded me the opportunity to meet the people that I knew were out there who are making a difference, like Susan and Cato and Brian. Without a lot of resources and financial assistance, they're taking it upon themselves and working for 10 years to make their own dictionaries of their Aboriginal languages, and they will have a permanent mark. Hardley and Lydia took in a homeless teen who came to work for them and realized he had no home. And he now goes to school and he's part of the family. His entire life opportunities are now completely changed. Hardly is also the only person in his village who owns a truck. So when people cannot pay for death, he goes and he picks up the bodies of their loved ones and gives them peace. And Suna, a Masai warrior, was a lion hunter for his community. And when lions would attack and kill precious livestock, he and the other warriors would go out and kill the lion because they had to protect their livestock. Now, as a lion guardian, he protects the lions. And by doing that, he encourages people to know that the lions are worth more alive than dead. And by doing so, he has income for his family, for the village. He changes the mindset of conservation. He boosts the vibrancy of the Masai Conservancy itself, tourism, and the mindset of future generations. These people are important and stuck with me because of their diversity, but also because they do not fit our usual perception of what being powerful is, and people who have funds and resources and positions to make a difference, but they completely are. And they reminded me of some very valuable lessons that I think we can carry through in everyday life. Number one, anticipation is totally the worst part, and it's unknown, and so you might as well not worry about it because you don't know what's going to happen. Number two, language allows you to communicate what you truly wish, but it is not a barrier. It is not a barrier to making a connection. Number three, culture and customs often seem to make us different, but when we're stripped bare, we find the common core in each other and we make connections, and this makes the world smaller. Number four, you focus on what people are capable of and not what they don't have. Number five, to live, you have to scare the hell out of yourself once in a while. And I think that a lot of times, people take for granted the immense decisions and the courage they have. So mine was a trip, and I fell in anaconda holes and all this stuff. But we do this every day. When you take a new job and you don't know what's going to happen. When you come to college, will I make friends? Will I pass my classes? Will I figure out what I want to do? When you move across the country and you don't know anybody. When you fall in love and you let somebody in. These are all risks. But we choose to do them, and when you choose to do them, the scary part becomes every day because you're doing them. And over time, that fear weakens, and imperceptibly sometimes, our idea of who we are and what we can be and what we can do is transformed. And most importantly, we are powerful. You, me, us, all of us together. Everything in our life and our experiences have prepared us for this moment. And from here on out, everything is a choice. The people that I met, like Suna and Hardley, and myself and the 250 people that helped me build a school, prove that this is not some BS lofty idea. It actually can be done, and it can be done without money. And it can be done without a lot of things that we often think that we need to have to do so. One act can change everything. What we do ricochets and radiates out. It doesn't have to be in Nicaragua. It doesn't have to be a school. We can start where we are, in our own backyard, with our friends, with a stranger. Your ability to change the world is closer than you think. Thank you.